Most people stay asleep until the sun peaks, but there is a specific spiritual secret hidden in the silence just before sunrise. Throughout Scripture, God often meets people in the quiet hours, when the world is still, distractions have faded, and hearts are ready to listen. What if your greatest breakthrough isn't waiting for a lucky moment, but for a disciplined morning? Today's story isn't about magic. It isn't about overnight success. It's about an ordinary man who discovered that mastering his mornings slowly transformed his entire life. As Proverbs reminds us, the hand of the diligent makes rich. This is the story of Everard, a poor laborer whose greatest treasure was never gold. It was the decision he made before sunrise. Centuries ago, nestled between rolling hills and a dense forest, stood a thriving market village surrounded by sturdy stone walls. Every morning, merchants opened their stalls, blacksmiths hammered glowing iron, and farmers led wagons filled with grain through the narrow streets. Life in the village moved with the rhythm of the rising sun. When daylight appeared, people worked. When darkness came, they slept. Few questioned the routine. Fewer still imagined there could be another way. On the outskirts of that village stood a weathered wooden hut with a leaking roof and crooked chimney. It belonged to a young laborer named Everard. He owned almost nothing. His clothes had been patched so many times that it was difficult to tell what they had once looked like. His boots had worn thin, forcing him to wrap strips of cloth around his feet during the cold months. Every morning he rose with the sun. Every evening he returned home exhausted. He carried sacks for merchants, split logs for strangers, repaired fences, cleaned filthy stables. He accepted every honest job he could find. Yet no matter how faithfully he worked, poverty remained his closest companion. His hands grew stronger, his back grew broader. But his hopes slowly became smaller. Some nights he skipped supper so he could save a few coins for winter. Other nights there simply wasn't enough food to save. As he lay awake, listening to the wind whistle through the cracks in his walls, he thought to himself,
Lord, why does it seem that others prosper while I remain in the same place?
Perhaps you've asked a similar question. You've worked hard, you've prayed, you've stayed faithful, yet progress feels painfully slow. Everard knew that feeling well. He watched wealthy traders stroll through the marketplace, wrapped in fine wool cloaks while he counted every copper coin before buying a loaf of bread. He wondered if they possessed some secret he had never been taught. Was it intelligence, luck, family inheritance? Or had God simply chosen to bless them more than him? Without realizing it, Everard was asking the wrong question. He believed his greatest problem was a lack of money. He didn't yet understand that his greatest untapped resource was time. Scripture urges us to redeem the time because the days are evil. Every sunrise was more than another day to survive. It was another gift entrusted to him by God, a gift that could either be invested or quietly wasted. Everard couldn't see that yet, but heaven was already preparing the answer, not through a miracle, not through unexpected riches, but through a conversation so ordinary that most people would have forgotten it before the next morning. Everything began to change on an evening that seemed no different from the hundreds before it. A weary traveler appeared at Everard's doorstep with a broken cart and a humble request for help. Everard almost treated him like any other stranger. He had no idea that by repairing one broken wheel, God was about to repair a broken perspective. And the lesson the old traveler shared would become the foundation upon which Everard built an extraordinary life. The autumn wind carried the scent of damp earth through the Maptamon village as Everard knelt beside the old man's wagon.
One wheel had splintered after striking a hidden stone along a road.
The merchant sighed as he examined the damage.
I suppose,
he muttered with a tired smile,
that even old wagons grow weary.
Everard chuckled softly. So do old men. The merchant laughed. And young ones, too. Together they lifted the wagon onto a sturdy log. Everard searched through a nearby woodpile until he found a piece strong enough to replace the broken spoke. His hands moved with quiet confidence. Years of repairing tools and fences had taught him to work carefully, even when no one was watching. The old merchant observed him in silence.
You've done this before. A few times. You work well.
I work because I must.
There was no bitterness in Everard's voice, only exhaustion. An hour later, the wheel was whole again. The merchant reached into his pouch. Everard gently raised his hand.
You've traveled far. Keep your coins.
The old man's eyes narrowed with curiosity.
You helped a stranger for nothing?
My mother taught me that kindness should never depend on payment.
The merchant smiled.
Then she taught you wisely.
Proverbs says that whoever refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Sometimes God's greatest rewards arrive wearing ordinary clothes. The merchant climbed down from his wagon.
I have fresh bread, dried fish, and enough stew for 2.
He looked toward Everard's small hut.
If you'll accept an old man's company,
Everard nodded.
it would be an honor. A simple meal.
The fire crackled softly as rain tapped against the roof. For a while, neither man spoke. They simply ate. Everard couldn't remember the last time he had tasted warm stew. Every spoonful reminded him how long it had been since he had eaten without worrying about tomorrow. The merchant finally broke the silence.
What do you hope your life will become?
Everard looked into the fire.
I don't know anymore.
The words surprised even him.
I used to dream.
What happened?
Life happened.
The merchant waited.
I work from sunrise until sunset. I do everything people ask. I've never cheated anyone. I've never stolen. I've prayed. I've worked. And yet,
He paused.
I never seem to move forward.
The room fell quiet again. The old traveler leaned back in his chair.
Tell me, Everard, when does your day begin?
The same as everyone else's.
And when does it end?
When I can no longer stand.
The merchant slowly nodded.
I thought so.
Everard frowned.
What do you mean?
Instead of answering immediately, the merchant reached for another piece of bread. Then he asked another question.
When do kings make their plans?
Everard shrugged.
I wouldn't know.
When do generals prepare for battle?
I've never met one.
When do farmers inspect their fields before the harvest?
Everard remained silent. The merchant smiled.
Long before the crowd arrives.
He leaned closer.
Most people think success is built in public. They're mistaken. The strongest foundations are laid in private.
Everard listened carefully. He sensed the old man was leading him somewhere, but he still couldn't see the destination. Then the merchant spoke one sentence that would echo in Everard's mind for the rest of his life.
The Lord gives every person the same 24 hours. The king receives no more. The beggar receives no less. What separates one life from another is often how those hours are spent.
Everard stared into the dancing flames. The merchant continued.
Most men sleep until the day demands something from them, but the wise prepare before the day ever begins.
His weathered face reflected the firelight.
There is a quiet treasure hidden before sunrise. It cannot be bought. It cannot be stolen. It can only be claimed.
Everard whispered.
What treasure?
The merchant pointed toward the dark window.
The hours when everyone else is asleep, the world is silent. Your mind is clear. Your spirit can hear what constant noise often drowns out.
He smiled gently. I have found that some of God's clearest lessons arrive before the sun. He wasn't promising riches. He wasn't selling a secret. He was describing a habit, one that had shaped his own life over many years. Then he quoted softly from the Psalms.
In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly. David understood something many people miss.
The merchant said.
The morning belongs first to God, before it belongs to the world.
Everard lowered his eyes. No one had ever spoken about time this way. He had always viewed mornings as the beginning of another burden, never as the beginning of another opportunity. The merchant stood and gathered his cloak.
It grows late. You should sleep.
Everard looked confused.
I thought you wanted me to wake before sunrise.
I do,
Then why tell me to sleep?
The old man laughed.
because discipline begins the evening before. You cannot rise faithfully if you refuse to sleep wisely.
Those words settled deep inside Everard's heart. As the merchant lay down near the fire and quickly drifted to sleep, Everard remained awake. Not because he wasn't tired, but because his thoughts refused to rest. For years he had prayed for God to change his circumstances. What if God had already given him the first step? Not a miracle, not a chest of gold, not an easier life. Just one quiet morning, and the courage to use it. Outside, the village slept peacefully beneath a blanket of stars. No one knew that, before the next sunrise, one ordinary decision would begin changing Everard's life forever. The hardest battle he would ever fight would not be against poverty. It would be against the voice inside him that whispered, "Stay in bed."